like to call to order this regular council meeting on September 5th of the Ascension Parish Council here in Donaldsonville. If you all will please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge. The invocation will be led by Martin McConnell. I looked up out there and saw you.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for the freedom and the opportunity that you give us to gather here today. Let's hope that we've gathered in your name and that we do your will for your people and do the best that we can. But at this time, Father, we ask you to give comfort and relief to our brothers and sisters on the eastern seaboard who are suffering through the pains and the tragedies and the horrors of Hurricane Dorian. You know that we have lived through these many times, and we can identify with them. And so we want you to please let them know that we are thinking of them, we're praying for them, we're loving them as brothers and sisters that they are. And we ask that they be comforted and that the relief be granted to them as quickly as possible. As for us, we thank you for this beautiful weather that you have been giving to us. The heat is very nice, but it's time to put it to an end. Thank you very much. If you choose to cool it off a little bit, we'll be very thankful for that, Father. And of course, as always, we ask you to protect those people who are in uniform, who are protecting us, particularly those who are going into harm's way, who are going into Hurricane Dorian, to protect the lives and the welfare of the people who are there. Please keep them safe, keep them healthy, and bring them home to their families safely and soon. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. I'd ask that you all remember my daughter, who is in South Carolina, in the city of Charleston. She doesn't have any power, but she's good so far. Everyone is present tonight except Councilman Travis Turner, who has not arrived yet. And I don't know if Travis is en route. I have not heard from him. There is a public comment period. If you have any item on the agenda about which you would like to speak, please go to the podium, get a red or green card, review the back of that card for the regular rules around commenting, and fill that card out and give that to the council secretary. And at the appropriate time, you'll be called upon to speak. There are no chair's additions tonight. At this time, we will do what we do only once a year, and that is we will sit as a board of review on tax matters. So at this time, I'd like to, the chair will entertain a motion to convene as the board of review.
So moved, Madam Chairman. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Mr. Smiley, I invite you to address the council, the board of review.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all of you. The assessment lists were open for public inspection for a period of 15 calendar days, which began August 15th, 2019, and ended August 29th, 2019. During the exposure period, the assessment lists have been changed where necessary for clerical error or erroneous assessment. So I hereby certify the 2019 Ascension Parish assessment list to you as a board of review.
Thank you, sir. Are there any appeals?
None.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the great work that you do and your team to assist our constituents who come to you with matters that they feel need to be addressed. Yeah. We understand that we get several a year and that you all have been able to accommodate those folks without us sitting in review of that. So
well, thank you very much. That's our job to make sure we take care of that before so that y'all don't have to deal with it.
We appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt the 2019 tax roll. A motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman Benny Johnson to adopt the 2019 tax roll. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you.
Now, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to reconvene into our regular session. I have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Randy Kluwat. We are reconvened as a council. This time, item number 6 is any presentations. Mr. President.
Yes, we have a proclamation here tonight for Miss Brittany is here. Come up front, please. We have a proclamation, whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of representative government in a republic dedicated to the rule of law, and whereas September 17th, 2019 marks the 232nd anniversary of framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition of the manifest document and its memorable anniversary, and to celebrate which all commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuances of proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitutional Week. Now, therefore, I, Kenny Matassa, President of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by virtue of authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2019 as Constitutional Week in Ascension Parish, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of formers of constitutions had in 1787 by the vigilance protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through the guardian of our liberties. Thank you very much. And
Yes, I wanted to say a few words. My name is Brittany Keene, and I am the Vice Regent of the Hiram Gaines chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. The DAR is an organization that Week. As my chapter's Constitution Week chairman, it is my honor and duty to spread awareness of the United States Constitution and Constitution Week, which is why I'm here with you tonight. As a lifelong resident of Ascension Parish, I've noticed that the reach of lineage societies rarely touches it. I want to better serve an underserved parish. 2019 marks the 64th anniversary of the first resolution honoring Constitution Week. I would like to thank Parish President Kenny Matassa for declaring Constitution Week and Mr. McConnell for all of his help. I also have handouts for anyone who would like more information on DAR and Constitution Week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to your
picture
fifth grade
over here,
grandpa.
Oh, sure.
Have a photograph, please?
Absolutely.
y'all want to?
I think I can see everyone. I can even see Lester.
Lester Duck.
All right, I pretend you're John Hancock. No, that was George Washington. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, will you give us a first-hand account of the writing of the Constitution?
I'll leave that because Kenny's the oldest. Yeah, right.
Gentlemen, I'm sure you noticed that Councilman Turner has arrived. Who could miss that yellow handkerchief?
I also have a good friend that lives in Ascension Parish, has been a member of this organization for years and years, Miss Dee Dee Burrow's mother, Betty Burrow. So, anyway. Okay, that's all we have for presentations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now, on my report, tonight you have in front of you that fill ordinance that is very important to Ascension Parish. I want to thank the committee members and all the hard work they did working on this. Mr. Cluart, Dempsey, Terry, Benny, and Johnny Cagnolati. We work hours on this. Nothing's perfect, and it's an ongoing living document. When I vetoed it, I had things like I wanted to put in there. The coastal, we had to take that out because we have a lot more homework to do on coastal areas. We've been in touch with FEMA and the state and everybody to work on this. So this won't be the end of it, it's just the starting. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll back up now to an update on our courthouse construction by Mr. Gasper Jafici. Thank you, Gasper, for coming this evening.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the council, I'm very pleased to report that yesterday began a very, very important aspect, in fact, the foundational aspect of the courthouse, and that is the installation of 25 of the almost 300 piles that will be under the building. The process was very interesting, went very, very quickly and smoothly with no problems, and I stopped out at the job site today on the way here, and the same thing today. It's a very hot day. It's a very fast process. If you're really interested in seeing that, I'll be happy to show you how that's done. It's auger cast concrete piling. It's something sort of new around here. But it went very smoothly for the first 2 days. We expect to be finished, depending on weather, with the piling in 3 to 4 weeks. So that's the next. You'll see plumbing going into the foundation below the slab, then the slab, and then we'll start seeing a building. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, but the project's going well.
Mr. Dawson.
Thank you, Gasper. Can you give me an idea where we are relative to our schedule and then cost?
We're about 21 days behind schedule due to some interference with Entergy lines. It's a very complex situation, and Entergy has, because of our own weather situations recently, is pretty spread out. So it's taking them a while to move their lines that need to be moved. And we had some other issues early on with the test piling and all, but the contractor expects to make up the 21 days. We have a 15-month project, and the contractor will make more money if he finishes early. So he has every expectation to finish still on time or early. So we expect to make that up. The cost, we're still on budget. We have had some surprises, but nothing major yet. And when we do, I'll let the council know. But nothing unusual for a project of this size.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Joseph.
Are you been keeping up with the contractor's DBE program, or are you aware of them meeting any obligation with that, the DBE program?
Yeah, we met early on about that, and they're still bringing subcontractors on. You know, as a project like this goes on, they bring people they need on as they need them, these subcontractors. So we've required that when they submit approval of a subcontractor, that they tell us what their DBE participation is for that contractor. So they have a goal, but they're still going to get the best people.
No, but that's no problem. The best people,
Right.
DBE have best people. They have way qualified people. I just want to know if they're, putting those people to work.
Yeah, they are. They've got a pretty good, Lamont has a pretty good reputation for this. Something that we'll cover at the next monthly meeting. You're welcome to attend those. They'll be announced. So we have weekly meetings at the job site, but the monthly meetings, everyone's invited, if you want to be there.
Cinnamon, if you don't mind, add me to that monthly meeting and give me that update, that date and time, please. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, sir. Any other questions? Mr. Cagnolati?
Yeah, we've had some discussions about this, Gasper, and it's come up among some of my constituents about the fill ordinance and what we're doing as far as the parish. Would you clarify that we've had some discussions about what jurisdiction is prevailing over this courthouse construction?
Of course, the courthouse is being built in the city of Gonzales. We've met every city of Gonzales requirement and ordinance. The city of Gonzales has been very good working with us. They come to all our monthly meetings, and we've met all their requirements with regard to fill, drainage, and everything else. They're really pretty much on top of the project. So we work very closely with Jackie Bauman and Scott Bird. So everything's, as far as the city of Gonzales is concerned, everything's fine.
Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Kluwat?
Yeah, I guess the question posed in a different way is anything we do under the field ordinance is changing the way that you do in the courthouse?
You know, I was asked a question a while back about how much fill we're putting on the
Site.
courthouse property. We're following a zero net fill. In fact, to improve the drainage for both the courthouse property and the property to the south of it, we're excavating a quite large retention pond, and in fact, we have not hauled in any fill onto the site. All the fill on the site is from the pond, and in fact, we will be hauling fill off of the site before the project is over. So we'll have a less than zero net fill project. So the average fill on the courthouse property is about 1.8 feet, if you take, what the average fill we put on that property is.
So basically, you mow the construction based on the land that you're fooling with, has a zero net fill, and even less than 3 foot.
Really better than zero net fill, and meeting the requirements of having that slab of the courthouse the same as a parish administration building and no lower than East Worthy, which would be, really, it wouldn't be prudent or from an engineering perspective to design a building slab lower than the street in front of it. So.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr.
Can I
Floyd.
revert back to the parish president's report?
You may.
Real quick, if you allow me a little latitude. This is basically parish-wide, but based on the flood of 2016 and the things that are happening, and the meeting that we had with Congressman Graves last week, that we're still in litigation. And based on proposals that's moving forward with other parishes north of us, I'm going to just let this council know that within the drainage district, East Central Drainage District, and possibly within the council, I'd like to move forward that we address our pending litigation or any litigation that we may want to put on those that are trying projects above us to put more water on us. That's all. Thank you.
Randy, we share your concern.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you for bringing
let me add one thing to that. I know everybody recently saw the big drainage projects that East Baton Rouge is doing. And of course, they said they had a model showing that it was minimal effect to Ascension. A week ago, I asked to see the models to assure that. Because when you fill up Shack, it's coming our way. So anyway, just what Mr. Kluwat said, that's where we're at.
Well, we thought we had a model too that had minimal effect.
Right. They had a model that showed the Sunshine Bridge should have fell down too. Y'all gonna be getting an invitation to the groundbreaking of the courthouse. Will be on the 18th, and y'all be getting it by email. 8:30 in the morning. But y'all get an invitation anyway. Thank you.
So we'll get an invitation to it by 8:30 in the morning, or just?
No, it's going to be on the 18th at 8:30 in the morning, but you're going to get an email on it.
I don't want to be called that morning. I'm not ready for 8:30. All right, thank you so much, Mr. President, and all of you who have commented. Now we will move along to general business. Item number 8 is a public hearing for which we will need to consider the issuance of not to exceed $9,678,000 of water revenue bonds of the parish of Ascension. Our bond counsel is going to give us some information. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
The governing authority was duly convened by Chairwoman Terry Cazzo. It was then announced that the governing authority would discuss, answer any questions, and hear any objections pertaining to the parish's intention to issue not to exceed $9,678,000 of its water revenue bonds, where the bonds will, A, be issued for the purposes of, 1, paying a portion of the cost of constructing and acquiring improvements and replacements of the water system owned and operated by the parish that services customers within the city of Donaldsonville, the Donaldsonville system, so that the Donaldsonville system may be integrated with the Ascension Parish, with the Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 1 system, the ACUD system, and together with the Donaldsonville system, and 2, paying the cost of issuing the bonds collectively, the project, B, will bear interest at the rate not to exceed 2.375% per annum, whose final maturity date would not exceed 40 years from the bond's date of issuance, will be issued only as fully registered bonds and a minimum denomination of not less than $5,000. C, will be issued in the manner prescribed by and under the authority of Section 39:524 and other applicable provisions of Part 2 of Chapter 4 of Subtitle 2 of Title 39 of the Louisiana Revised Statutes of 1950 as amended, the Revenue Bond Act. And D, shall be limited and special revenue bonds of the parish secured by and payable in principal and interest solely from, after paying the reasonable and necessary expenses of operating and maintaining the Donaldsonville system, the income and revenues derived or to be derived from the Donaldsonville system, the pledged revenues, and where the form of the notice of intention required by the Revenue Bond Act to issue the bonds was adopted by the governing authority on March 21st and as amended on July 18th. The form of notice of intention was approved by the Louisiana State Bond Commission at its July 18, 2019 meeting, and a notice of intention was published in the Gonzales Weekly, a weekly newspaper of general circulation in the parish on August 1st, 2019, August 8th, 2019, August 15th, 2019, and August 22nd, 2019. The bonds were generally described and the nature of the security explained. After this explanation, the chairwoman stated that the governing authority would proceed and open in public session to discuss any questions and hear any objections to any issuance of the bonds. Madam Chairwoman, I would ask that you ask if there's anyone present that has any questions or objections.
Have a motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Have a second to open a public hearing. Does anyone have any comment that they would like to make on item number 8 and 9?
Madam Chair, to close.
Have a motion and a second to open and close the public hearing. Mr.
There were no
Dunn?
no one present or either offered any objections to the proposed issuance of the bonds without an election being held thereon, or presented a petition requesting such an election, and no petitions requesting such an election nor objections to the proposed issue of the bonds had been filed with the council secretary of the governing authority prior to the public hearing. There being no further questions or discussions, I would ask that the council make a motion to accept, close the public hearing and accept the resolution.
We have closed the public hearing, sir, so all we need is a motion to adopt the resolution. Have a motion by Mr. Cluott, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to adopt the resolution as read by you.
And just for the record, I would need to read the first part of the resolution.
Go right ahead.
A resolution finding and determining that a public hearing has been held and that no petition has been filed objecting to the proposed issuance of not to exceed $9,678,000 of water revenue bonds of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, authorizing the officials of said parish to proceed with the preparation of the documents requiring the issuance of the bonds and providing for other matters in connection therewith. And I think that motion to accept the resolution has already been made, but I would ask it to just be ratified.
Absolutely. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion is adopted.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Item number 10, an approval of a substantial completion for Hillaryville Park improvements, ENG 16091-2. Dean? Good to see you this evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yes, sir. We finished all of the park area construction. We have a small punch list outstanding, but I've asked that we go ahead and file for substantial completion.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Cluide, second by Mr. Cagnolati, to approve the substantial completion for the Hillaryville Park. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it so much. Item number 11, approval of change order number 5 for Houmas House Plantation Steamboat Overlook project to decrease the contract amount by $4,800. Ms. Martha, welcome this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the council. This is good when you can come in and say things have decreased. So this change order is to decrease the contract of $4,800.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, a second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to approve the change order number 5. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Gentlemen, this is our new, the creation of new road infrastructure districts, so Cinnamon and I are going to try to get this right. She's got it right, I'm going to try to get it right. The first thing we will need will be to open and close a public hearing, and then to approve the road infrastructure district designated as the Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District number IDD 219-01, Brookstone subdivision, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 174011, approval of final plat procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. The chair would entertain a motion to open and close. I have a motion by Councilman Cluide to open, a second to open the public hearing. Are there any comments?
Motion to close.
I have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson and a second by someone over there. Mr. Bill Dawson, to close the public hearing. The chair would now entertain a motion to approve the creation of the road infrastructure district for Brookstone.
So we're going to approve it before we introduce it?
Two
Well, what are
public
we
hearings.
approving right now?
This is just the first step, Mr. Dawson. Go with us.
Was I not listening?
Just go with us this time. All right. Mr. Dawson has made the motion to create the infrastructure district. It's been seconded by Mr. Johnson. And are there any questions? You don't have any, Bill. And any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. This is a new process for us. Jerome, maybe you would like to step up and kind of tell us a little bit about how this has to work.
Yeah, we made this presentation at a Transportation Committee meeting. This is an ordinance that you passed in January that requires a subdivision developer to choose between having private streets or public streets. And if they choose to have public streets, they need to create this infrastructure development district that allows us to collect money on their property tax bills, and it goes into a special fund to maintain the streets within that subdivision, all right? And this is, as O'Neill said, state law requires us to have 2 public hearings. So this is the first of 2. The next meeting will have the second, and then you'll approve the formation of the district at that meeting, all right?
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, O'Neill, as far as to help everybody understand the process?
So this is just authorizing to create the district. You'll introduce an ordinance actually creating the district tonight, and then we'll have another public hearing. So that's
Thank you very much.
And all five of these, the four of them that follow this, are the same procedure.
So we're going to go through the same process on the next several. Yes, Don?
Yeah, Jerome, while you're still there, just a question. So these are going to be our first 5 IDDs created tonight.
These are the first five.
Okay,
Yeah. They
I'm
will
just
actually be created at the next
Had there
meeting.
been any other developments in which they're not choosing to have an infrastructure development?
I think we have 2 or 3 that decided to go with private
Go on their
streets.
own.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so item number 12 has been opened, closed. The motion to approve the creation has been done. Are there any other questions? Mr. Cagnolati? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right, we're going to try to do the same thing over again. Public hearing and approval to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish Road Infrastructure District IDD 219-2, Camellia Cove subdivision pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. Chair will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati, second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Are there any comments? The chair has a motion to close the public hearing
Second.
and a second to close the public hearing. Now, the chair will entertain a motion to create the district.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Lawler and a second by Mr. Cagnolati to create the district. Any objections? Any questions? I should have said first. Now, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 14, a public hearing and approval to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District IDD 219-03, Combray Oaks subdivision pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of the final plat procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. The chair will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion open public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Johnson. Are there any questions from the public? Comments? Hearing none, I have a motion by Councilman Johnson to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Councilman Lawler. Now, the chair will entertain a motion to create the infrastructure district. Motion by Councilman Lawler to create, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Okay, and Cinema has asked, if you would, please, to ask everybody to speak up. She cannot hear when you speak. When you ask for, to make a motion, so if you would speak up, please, so that she can hear. She's having to turn her head all the way around. It's not working out real well for her.
Okay, very good.
Item number 15, public hearing and approval to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District IDD 2019-05, Germany Oaks, Phase 2, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of the final plat procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. Chair will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Johnson and a second by Councilman Cagnolati to open the public hearing. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to make? Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I still have a question.
Are you ready, Bill? You have a question?
I do.
Please.
Are we adopting an ordinance here to create the road infrastructure district? Well, I get that, but, I mean, this, if I'm reading this correctly, it says that we're having a public hearing and approval to create a road. I get that, but when I look at this says this is an ordinance here that we're adopting right now. Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion to close the public hearing. I have a motion by Councilman
Second.
Benny Johnson and a second by Councilman Aaron Lawler, and the chair will entertain a motion to create the district.
Councilman Lawler moves to create the district.
Thank you. Thank
second.
you. How many years has it taken?
You're having a public hearing, but you're
Because
creating this district by an ordinance.
You have to have a public hearing.
I get that. We're just saying right here that
I'm
you
authorizing
move-
him to create it.
You move to create the district.
Yes. We're giving authorization to,
That's the
yes, to that developer to do
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
The developer has to come to
We
us.
should be just opening and closing the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Let's just go through it this way tonight. We'll do it different the next time if it's determined that this is not the proper procedure. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Councilman Lawler to create. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. There's one more of these. Item number 16. Public hearing and approval to create a road infrastructure district designated as the Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District, IDD 2019 number 4, Highland Trace Subdivision, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of the final plat procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. Motion to open the public hearing, please.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnalotti and a second by Councilman Johnson. Are there any comments by the public?
Motion closed.
I have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson to close the public hearing, seconded by Councilman Aaron Lawler. Now, the chair will entertain a motion to create the district.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Johnson and a second by Councilman Lawler to create the district. Item number 17, are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 17, Planning and Zoning Recommendations, Zoning Review ID PZ 2037.19, Lot 10A1 of Lot 9C of the Stephen M. Ryan property and Lot 10A of the Kim Garrett property into 9C and A, or 9CA, and Lot 10A1 for Richard Desitel, located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 431, approximately 1,500 feet north of the Black Bayou Road, LA Highway 934, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map for rural R to mixed use 2. Zoning Commission recommends denial of this rezone, so the chair will entertain a motion to accept or deny the recommendation.
Move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny the rezone.
Have a motion to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny the rezone.
I'll second that.
Have a second by Councilman Lawler. Are there any questions?
Question, man.
Mr. Klulop.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's in my district.
Yes.
Yes, can you, I see within the notes that the zoning commission unanimously denied it with those present. Of course, there were 3 absent. What do you feel is the intentions of the denial?
What the intentions was,
Reason.
the reason, spot zoning.
That's what,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
because they had a question whether you can own the corner, how far on.
He was off the corner approximately, I think it's 1,500 feet north.
You're 1,500 feet from Black Bayou.
Yes, sir.
But you're getting close to,
621, I would say it's about midway.
that's what.
Yes, sir. Yes. From 621 south.
Does the petitioner have any other avenues to go?
No, sir. He actually found a different spot. He moved to a different location. And now he's trying to sell the property.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second by Mr. Cagnalotti to accept the recommendation to deny. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 18, zoning review, IDPZ 2064.19, Lot 32 of Perkins Oak subdivision for Zachary Whittington, located on the north side of Perkins Road, approximately 100 feet east of Perkins Road, Oak Road, to amend the parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to mixed-use. Zoning Commission recommends denial of this rezone to accept or deny. The chair will entertain a motion to accept or deny the recommendation to deny.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the zoning commission to deny.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Satterley, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert to accept the recommendation to deny. Are there any questions? Any objections?
Was this also spot zoning?
No, sir, this was actually based on the uses that could go there, and it was in a residential, actually in a residential subdivision.
It was in a subdivision?
Yes, sir. Yes, it was on the corner of a subdivision of Perkins Oaks.
So that corner is part of the subdivision?
That's correct, yes, sir. Thank
I
you.
want to make that clear.
Yes.
Doc may remember, but I think something almost exactly like this came up in that area years ago.
Yes, sir.
Same result. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, we'll introduce some ordinances, a bunch of them created earlier. But number 19 is an introduction of an ordinance to adopt the Ascension Parish Animal Service Board bylaws. The chair will entertain a motion to introduce.
Motion to introduce.
I have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to introduce. Number 20, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Article 6, Council Procedures, Section 2100 through Section 2101.
Motion to introduce.
Mr. Cagnolati makes a motion to introduce. Item number 21, introduction of an ordinance to create a road infrastructure district designated as a Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District, BD 2019-1, Brookstone subdivision, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of the final plat F, Procedure F, Infrastructure Development District. Motion to introduce.
Motion to introduce.
I have a motion to introduce by Councilman Lawler. And anybody wants to jump in and introduce these before I read through that whole thing, I'd be very grateful. Item number 22, introduction of an ordinance to create a road infrastructure district designated as the Parish of Ascension. Oh, man, I can't get a friend tonight.
Motion to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Item number 23, introduction of an ordinance to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District number 2019-3. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Item number 24, introduction of an ordinance to create an infrastructure district designated as...
Motion to introduce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cagnolati. Item number 25. Introduction of an ordinance to create...
Motion to introduce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawler. Did we get them all, Cinnamon? Thank you very much. I know y'all did want to hear me read all that wonderful stuff again, but I thank you for putting us all out of our misery on that. Public hearing ordinances. Number 26, reading of an ordinance to revoke an existing 25-foot drainage servitude running approximately 75 feet from the western boundary of tracts LJG 1A 1B, owned by Entergy Louisiana, LLC, tracts LJG 1A 1A1, LJG 2A 1A1 A1 A2 A1, and Lot 69A1, owned by Luke J. Grizzaffi, doing business as Ascension Commerce, LLC, and Tract 77A, owned by Brent C. Damon and Damon W. Woods, doing business as Upton and Woods Holdings, LLC, of the former Colonial Sugars property. Mr. Parrington.
The revoking existing 25-foot drainage servitude running approximately 75 feet from the western boundary of tracts LJG 1A 1B, owned by Energy Louisiana LLC, tracts LJG 1A 1A1, LJG 2A 1, A1A, A2A1, and Lot 69A1 owned by Luke Grizzaffi, DBA Ascension Commerce LLC, and Tract 77A owned by Brent C. Damon
and Damon W. Wood, DBA Upton and Woods Holdings LLC, of the former Colonial Sugar Properties. Property is depicted on the survey map showing the final plat of Ascension Commerce Center, fifth filing by Quality Engineering Surveying and LLC, instrument number 973937, dated July 8th, 2019. Whereas the petition is a petition of Ascension Parish Council to revoke an existing 25-foot drainage servitude running approximately 75 feet from the western boundary of tracts LJG 1A, 1B, owned by Energy Louisiana LLC, and tracts LJG 1A, 1A1, LJG 2A, 1, A1, A1, A2, A1, and Lot 69A, owned by Luke J. Grazafi, DBA Ascension Commerce LLC, and Tract 77A, owned by Brent C. Damon and Damon Wood, DBA Upton Woods LLC, of the former colonial property, as depicted on the survey map showing the final plat of Ascension Commerce, fifth filing by Quality Engineering and Surveying LLC, instrument number 973937, and dated July 8, 2019. Whereas the Planning and Engineering Department reviewed and researched said request, and they have no objection to the revocation. The Parish of Ascension hereby deigns that it grants a approval of a revocation of existing 25-foot drainage servitude running approximately 75 feet from the western boundary of tracts LJG 1A, 1B, owned by Energy Louisiana LLC, tracts LJG 1A, 1A, 1, LJG 2A, 1A1, 1, A2, A1, and Lot 69A, owned by Luke J. Grazafi, DBA Ascension Commerce LLC, and Tract 77A, owned by Brent C. Damon and Damon W. Woods, DBA Upton and Woods LLC, of the former Colonial Sugar Properties. Property is depicted on the survey map showing the final plat of Ascension Parish Commerce Center, fifth filing by Quality Engineering LLC and Surveying LLC, instrument number 973937, dated July 8, 2019, uses the basis of an exhibit attached hereto and made a part of Exhibit A. All ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict herewith are hereby and henceforth repealed. If any provision of this ordinance is held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions herein, which shall be given effect without the invalid provisions. And to this end, the provisions of this ordinance are hereby declared to be severable. The ordinance shall be fully effective. The ordinance shall be in effect 15 days after adoption. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion second.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson and a second by Councilman Aaron Lawler to open a public hearing. A motion by Councilman Cagnolati,
Second.
second by Councilman Lawler to close the public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance. Motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Second by Councilman Benny Johnson to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 29, reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 5, Drainage, regarding fill. O'Neill.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, LDC Appendix V, Package 5, drainage. Whereas Ascension Parish, a local government subdivision, is defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish, adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Unified Land Development Code, LDC, of Ascension Parish, Louisiana, Appendix 5, drainage is amended as follows, as more fully described in Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions and shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of this ordinance. This ordinance shall be in full effect as submitted by law. The ordinance submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Thank you very much. At this time, we have a presentation, I believe, by the folks from GSA.
Are we going to do the public hearing?
We can do it either way. I mean, I would welcome your comments, and then the public hearing can take place where people can have heard what you all think are appropriate amendments to this ordinance, and then we'll go from there. And we'll ask the public to have an opportunity at that point to speak, if that's the will of the council. Is
You've got to
everybody?
have the public hearing before you do any amendments.
Right, we will. We're going to just let them talk about what they're proposing, and then we'll have the public hearing. So gentlemen, don't make any motions to amend this document until we have had this public hearing, if you don't mind, please.
Let's have a public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good to be here tonight.
Thank you.
I just want to make a few brief comments, Madam Chairman, and then if you would like, we can talk about what what we think the highlights of the revised ordinance are, and then we can have, I guess, have a public hearing and move forward from there. So, as I stated earlier, maybe in our previous presentation to you, the goal of the committee was to have a clear, precise document that was based on technical merit, eliminated the discretionary considerations, the exceptions, and the loopholes, allowing the ordinance to drive development considerations. It protected the adjacent property owners. It minimized the adverse drainage and flooding impacts, reduced insurance costs, and could be applied equally and fairly across the board. We think the ordinance that you have in front of you does that. We think that it does allow and does satisfy all of those goals and conditions that we set in our discussions with you and with other stakeholders. So, as President Matas alluded to earlier, there's still a few issues that are remaining outstanding to be addressed, and those issues deal with the permitting process and the fees, long-term accountability of the existing mitigation area facilities, which there's some issues there, some real issues that we need to sit down and talk with O'Neill and the legal folks from Ascension Parish, as well as the committee, as well as planning and zoning to resolve those issues. There may be other enhancements to this project, to the ordinance, as we move through the community rating system points to lower those flood insurance premiums. We also expect that there may be some minor refinements to the ordinance as the document is circulated and as the committee continues to work on the remaining issues. So with that, those are my comments. The ordinance is in front of you. If you want to talk about what we think the highlights and the merits of the ordinance are, I'll be happy to do that. But I would recommend that we move to the public hearing, see what comments there are out there, and then we'll address those accordingly.
Thank you, Glenn. I think that's an excellent way to proceed. The Chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Kluwat.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kegnalati to open a public hearing. Are there any folks who desire to speak? I don't have any cards at this time. Ma'am, would you please fill out a card? If you'll turn your cards in, you can just hand that one direct to me. I see you coming. Thank you very much. If you'll fill out, we're going to offer the public a moment here to fill out a card and hand that to the chair, and then I'll give you an opportunity to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. We'll go ahead with the first one while we await the second. The first one is Mr. Nathan Spicer. Nathan, thank you very much.
Hello again, council members. I appreciate y'all's time as always, and I know y'all have been working relentlessly on this for months and months and months. I just had a few questions, and maybe you can answer them. Reading regardless of flood designation, does this apply to industrial as well?
That's actually something we're going to address after the public comments.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that was my question. And as you know, I think I sent you all an email this week. The cost difference between pier and beam and slab is about $22,000 on a small house, 2,100 square feet on the ground. And so we need to keep that in mind. And 20 years from now, everything will be pier and beam possibly, if it stays. And then maybe the appraisals will line up. That's our biggest concern is, even though this person can afford a $300,000 house, can maybe afford a $350,000 house, is that the mortgage company's only going to give them what the appraisal is. So if it appraises for $300,000 but it costs $325,000 or $330,000, they have to have equity in the land or come up with $25,000 in addition to closing costs and the 5 or 10%, 20% they already have to put down. So just keeping that, but we do want to see growth, not crazy growth like we've had for many years, and we're all out of control. We like to see structure and smart planning flood-friendly planning, and also, I know y'all spent a lot of time and y'all been working really hard, and we appreciate all the effort y'all made, but that was just a couple questions I had, was on that, and hopefully someday we can actually get the money for the parish to do the technical data to back it all up, to see if we did decide tonight, or when it's decided, if that'll, 20, 30 years, that's the best thing. I know right now we have to do something, we feel like, because, we haven't done anything, so, like I said, I appreciate y'all's time. I know we got to start somewhere, and so maybe this is it. So, like I said, hopefully we can raise taxes or increase income to pay for the studies that we need. And I know there's the watershed initiative, whatever, statewide, but that may be 10 or 20 years, and we know Ascension Parish needs something before that. So, but I appreciate all y'all's time and effort. Thank you so much.
Mr. Spicer, we appreciate you. You've been a good partner in this. As a stakeholder, we appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Cindy Steyer.
Steyer.
Yes. Ms. Steyer, please. The floor is yours for 3 minutes.
I want to start just to remind you, I know you're hearing it from everyone, but on your website you have the 12 principles adopted by the council that are to guide development, and number 1 is to protect public safety and property. And number 2 is manage growth. I'm very concerned that the parish does not appear to have a comprehensive plan for development. Plans are done
Ms.
for...
Steyer, this is a discussion on a fill ordinance.
Correct.
Are your comments going to be directed to the fill ordinance?
Yes, they will.
Okay, thank you.
And so I've been looking into the ordinance and so forth as a resident of the parish, and I find that there's a lot of discussion about developers being concerned, having to mitigate or not being allowed to fill above 3 feet. I'm not sure what established the 3-foot elevation. However, I find in your parish ordinance, they're allowed to fill to 3 feet with no mitigation or compensation. Over 3 feet is when they have to start compensating and providing flood storage. Excuse me. As a homeowner who flooded only 2 feet, I just want you to consider, as you fill, effects are cumulative. And so the developers are concerned we're going to add cost to houses up to $20,000, maybe more. We're building new homes in the price range of $350,000 to $500,000. We have to have additional restraints on adding fill that causes flooding.
Ms. Steyer, I want to make real clear. You filled out a red card, which would indicate to everybody kind of looking here that you are opposed to the fill ordinance.
Well, frankly, I know, except that the fill ordinance, I had trouble hearing everything it was. Has this ordinance been circulated? Maybe that should have been my first comment. Has this ordinance been circulated to the public? Has it been on the website to allow us to look at it before these meetings? It was read tonight, is that correct? Is that the first time it's presented to the public?
That was introduced last meeting.
At the last meeting? And was it, I couldn't find it on the website, but I'll look again. Could be my mistake. But the fill ordinance, your decision, I would just say no fill without mitigation or compensation. And the concern about raising the cost to housing for having any kind of requirements to build on piers or chain wall, it has to be acceptable, because we had over 13,000 houses in Ascension that were flooded. The average cost by the Louisiana Economic Development report said that the average claim was over $45,000 per home. That's just homes. That's not businesses. That's not apartment dwellings, etc. That equates to almost $500 million worth of damage in one event in this parish.
Thank you.
What does that cost compare
Absolutely.
to $22,000 on a new home?
Absolutely.
That's my point.
I agree with you, Ms. Steyer, and I think your card should have been green. I think you'll be pleased ultimately with the outcome of this meeting. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for
Well,
coming.
after the presentation, then are you going to vote to adopt or not adopt, or are you going to
Yes,
look at, so you're not going to consider if someone has additional comments to amend this?
We will be considering that tonight.
Okay. All right,
And then
thank
we
you.
will be voting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Right here? It's right here. Thank you.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion closed.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson and a second by Councilman John Cagnalad to close the public hearing. And the chair will allow the representatives from GSA to come back to us now with the recommendations that they have to amend this ordinance as it was introduced.
I do have recommendations, but before we go to that, I would like to clarify that there is not a 3-foot freebie. There's a 3-foot max fill limit, and any fill placed below VFE needs to be mitigated. So that's, what was stated earlier is not correct based on the new ordinance. It was revised to state that there's 0 net fill for the entire property.
That's what is needed.
Yeah, and that's what is proposed tonight.
Yes.
I do have a couple amendments to propose. We've had several meetings with several councilmen throughout the past few weeks after it was introduced. And the first section would be under 17503 applicability. The first one is just clarification of wording. It would be under A3, and we'd like to revise the wording to read, "The placement of fill or spoil material on public lands when such fill or spoil is to be used or excavated for public projects by any federal, state, or local governmental entity, all other regulatory requirements shall still apply." And again, this is just for further clarification on where this applies. And then the second amendment to this section, as you know, there was an industrial exemption. That's a state law. We took it out of this ordinance because the wording wasn't correct. And after we introduced it, we did get some comments just to clarify. We'd like to add it back in with reference to the correct state law. So we'd like to add it in to read, "This ordinance shall not apply to construction or uses of buildings, structures, or land in industrial facilities, provided an industrial facility is located in a designated industrial area per LARS 33-130 and Section 1710 industrial areas in the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances."
So that would be your recommendations for
17503 applicability.
17503. The chair would entertain a motion to amend the ordinance to read those. I have a motion by Councilman Kluwat, and a second by Councilman Cagnalad.
We got a big revision, so we have to revise this revision. Well, all this markup that's on here is a revision to the current ordinance.
Give me the.
Introduced already.
It's not an ordinance.
It was introduced as an ordinance.
It's not an ordinance. We're trying to pass it tonight, but the revision was introduced.
Right. So it was already
So we're
introduced.
gonna,
That's what you're.
so we want to amend the revision, and
The
then we'll
markup was
vote on the
introduced.
amended
Is that
ordinance.
It was introduced.
The markup
That's
was
my understanding. That
introduced.
was introduced. That's what I was told.
Yes.
But what,
And
all I'm saying is that the current ordinance, this is actually a change to the proposed revision.
Correct. So
It's not a change to the current ordinance,
No,
it's a
it's a
change to
cleanup.
the proposed revision.
Right. It's a change to the current, to the introduced ordinance.
Yeah.
And then we'll vote on
Okay.
the entire
Okay, thank you.
corrected ordinance.
I'll second that, or if there's
Right,
no
so I have a
motion.
motion.
I don't think we should make an amendment right now on this, because then we'll have to make a multiple amendments. And that
However,
could
whatever-
complicate things, because you have a limited number of amendments.
Why can't you adopt the document with the amendment?
Do you, I'm good with however you
Yeah,
all
that's what I was
recommend we
gonna
do
do.
it. If we want to, and I'll ask legal counsel to advise me on that.
If you approve it with the amendment, that's the same thing.
That's it.
Okay, so we'll read all the amendments?
Well, the introduced ordinance is what's before
Right.
with the amendments that already be introduced. That's what's before the council tonight. If you want to add these to it, that's an amendment to what's been introduced.
Correct.
Not to the current ordinance, to what's been
To
introduced.
what's been
Okay.
introduced. Exactly. Do you want to do all that at one time? Do you suggest we do it all at one
You
time?
can do it either way, whatever is your preference.
This is the thing I made the motion on right here is a clarification more or less.
You want to add that to the ordinance.
I want to add that to the proposed
ordinance.
The
To the
adopted
introduced ordinance, that's what we're here about tonight, the ordinance has already been
We're here about
introduced.
the introduced ordinance. So anything we're talking about now is about the introduced ordinance. So
The
let's,
introduced amendment to the ordinance.
so I would like, I feel like it's just easier for me to follow in my head if we introduce an amendment to the ordinance, and then we introduce another amendment to the ordinance, and then we pass each of those, and then we pass the ordinance as amended.
The amended ordinance as amended.
The amended ordinance as amended, correct.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right?
whatever.
Is everybody good with that procedure? Thank you very much. So if you will restate your motion, Mr. Cluott, just so the chair can keep it straight.
I would like to make a motion that we add as an amendment to the introduced ordinance tonight, which is the amended motion, amended ordinance.
I'm going to second that.
Thank you. Have a motion.
Don't ask me to repeat it, though.
17-503A, applicability, 3 and 4. The revisions which I think are clarifications.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that amendment is passed. Your
I
next
only have one
recommendation.
more, and that would be to 175093, long-term accountability of mitigation facilities. In the ordinance as proposed, as you currently have it, it says reserved for future expansion, and that's because there's a lot of legal issues that we still need to figure out in terms of existing facilities and how to implement any sort of mitigation or accountability to them. So I'd like to propose 2 sections to it. The first one is an inspection for compliance with design shall be performed every 5 years on all privately owned stormwater and floodplain mitigation facilities approved under this ordinance, and a letter of certification of compliance with design shall be submitted by an engineer licensed by the state of Louisiana. So this is just for any facilities that are approved under the ordinance as adopted tonight. And that'll give and we'll still have to figure out existing facilities. And then the second part of it would read, long-term accountability of existing mitigation facilities shall be determined within 90 days of adoption of this ordinance and presented to the council for approval. So that gives us a strict deadline to present to you how we propose to hold existing facilities accountable for maintaining their original intent.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second.
a second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Are there any questions?
I'd like
Mr.
to
Dawson.
revise I would like to offer an amendment to that, to change the 90 days to 120 days. I feel like, 90 days from when we adopt it now is going to put us right at the transition of our term and the parish president's term. So, I think that we need at least 3 months into the new term to do that. So I'm offering an amendment to,
120 days.
All right?
All right.
So we have a motion to amend the amended motion to 120 days. Are there any questions? Any objections?
I got a quick
Mr. Satterley?
Not an objection necessarily, not an objection, but a question. Under Part A of 175093, the inspection for compliance, it says with design shall be performed every 5 years on all privately owned stormwater and floodplain mitigation facilities approved under this ordinance, and a letter of certification of compliance with design shall be submitted by an engineer licensed by the state of Louisiana. That's great, but what's the consequence of after doing an inspection and we find out there's a problem or an issue?
It would follow, I can't recall the section off the top of my head, but the one that refers to fines and violations. So essentially, they'd get a letter of noncompliance, and I know there are 4 sections of it. I think the first is a letter, and then they have a certain amount of time to fix it, and then they pull their permits, and then they're subject to fines.
Is that in the law elsewhere?
175092, page 1822.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
I don't have it in front of me, I apologize.
Just wanted to be sure you weren't making trouble, that's all.
Mr. Cluott?
Yeah, just a quick question. Was the 90 days just arbitrarily? Or longer than that?
It was recommended at a year, and then I changed it to actually 120 days because I thought a year was too long. And then after speaking with members of the administration, they thought 90 days was more than enough time, so I revised it to 90 days.
So they can do it inside 120. There's nothing to prevent that.
Mr. Lawler?
Going back, I'm sorry, Randy.
Because I just wonder why would you want to change it?
Well, because I feel like I said, that this is gonna be the end of the term, and you're gonna be 90 days is gonna put you in December or so of this year, so you're gonna be right at that transition. So I think it'd be better to have the new term established, and that gives them time to do it there. If they can do it, if they do it inside that time, they certainly can. I mean, they can bring it back to us any time in that period.
They got 4 years next time.
Well, they'll have 30 days on this ordinance, once it takes.
They won't.
So there's nothing to limit them from having it ready in 90
No.
days, and we would hope that they could. But in the event that they couldn't, I mean, it would be 120 days. Mr. Lawler, you had a comment?
Yeah, following up on Councilman Satterley's questions about the inspection, it's got to be performed every 5 years, and then there are some penalties, and that would be for the owner of the pond, correct?
Correct.
And in many cases, that'd be a homeowners association. However, the homeowners association is not the one that's building the pond.
It would be the responsible party of the pond.
But in most occasions, 5 years subdivision is built, if the homeowner association has taken over,
And they're responsible for maintaining
and they'll
it.
be, exactly, but we're not increasing the standards by which the pond has
No.
to be built.
No, this is just to ensure that it's in the state it was put in at, so that the structures are still clear, the side slopes haven't caved in, it doesn't need
But
to.
that's what I'm saying, is
silted.
currently, when we build ponds in the parish, and I say we, I've never built a pond in the parish, but I know several neighborhoods in my area, within 5 years, and sometimes slightly more, slightly less than that, the sides of the ponds are caving in. So that means that there'll be an inspection, and then we're gonna go to a homeowners group and tell them that y'all have to pay fines and fees, which I think is incredibly unfair to this homeowner association, who had no role in building this pond, who did not ensure that the pond was gonna be built in a way that you wouldn't have these problems, and we see that all over. Unless we increase the durability and resistance to the erosion of these ponds and require the developers to do that, I think we're setting up our homeowners and our constituents that are gonna walk into this, buy a house, and not realize that their homeowner association could be hit with fees and penalties. I think that's incredibly unfair to them. So, I would oppose doing this unless we also improve, our laws regarding how these ponds are built, because right now, I tell you, they fall apart pretty doggone quickly.
That's something, Aaron, can be addressed in the actual design requirements of the pond. One of the things we've done in this ordinance.
I understand that, but I tried to do that several months ago, and the administration was supposed to put together a committee to look into it, and it never happened. So I don't have a feeling that we're gonna go back and I don't wanna require this and say we'll go back and do something. I say we remove this until we go back and we establish that we're gonna improve the way ponds are built. I think it just sets a very dangerous precedent for any homeowner or any homeowner association.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Mr. Kluwat?
Yeah, Aaron, I don't disagree with you, but I disagree with you on the total, that we do need this in there. Because at some point, somebody's responsible. And yes, we'll give them whatever. At some point, the homeowners association is responsible for the maintenance of the properties. And I don't have a problem working on increasing the engineering standards for the pond. But this still needs to be in there, because this is a problem right now, okay? And it has to be covered. And that's been in every discussion from when Mr. Dawson, Mr. Sadley worked on the first draft till when it came in front of us the first time, then working on the committee on it for the second draft, and every conversation that this has been in here, that we can't just not put it in here. And I understand, and I would be, I got about 4 months left. I'd work with you to change those engineering standards. But we can't just go forward without that in there, because we've got a horrendous problem with that right now. And that would help keep your guys, whoever's caught right now, I feel for them. But we can move forward and correct.
Does staff have any comment?
Yes, I wanted to say that right now, we have certain standards that the ponds are built to. Those are in our specifications. The purpose of this is to make sure that the ponds are maintained to those standards. So if 5 years down the road, we go in, and remember that ponds deteriorate because of lack of maintenance. So if they're not maintained after 5 years or however many years, and they're not maintained to the standards that they were originally designed, that's where we're going to go after them. But the ponds right now are built to certain standards, and it should, if they're properly maintained, you should not see the slumping that's going on in there, and that's particularly a maintenance problem, right?
Thank you. Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, I find myself having significant empathy for Councilman Lawler's plea tonight. I mean, I'm not trying to delay what we're trying to do here tonight, but in my own district, we had Mossy Oaks, and it actually made it to the newspapers, and I distinctly recall the folks in the adjacent subdivision, even though we have design standards, Mr. Fournier and so forth, the backs of their yards and their fences were sloughing off into the detention ponds. I view this as an issue, and it's something Mr. Law and I talked about in the past when I was chairing strategic planning, and we just never got it, I guess, off the ground for one reason or the other. That elsewhere in our code, we really ought to fix that. We ought to be considering, with engineering expertise and advice, should we use, and I'm trying to remember, Mr. Law was talking about, I'm not an engineer, he's not an engineer, but riprap, bulkheading, combination of both, whatever, to prevent that. Because my comment is this: even if whatever standard we have, the problem's happening. Therefore, the standard's not strong enough, and I wouldn't like to see homeowners, because what happened in the Mossy Oaks thing, I mean, the people whose fences and backs of their property were sloughing off into the Mossy Oaks pond, they wanted relief, so they came to us, and we told them, well, it's not a parish problem. Whose problem is it? Well, it's either the guy that built the pond, well, he's gone 5 years later. So now it's the homeowners that are, quote, stuck with that pond that didn't have the appropriate sidewalls to it or whatever. For a while it was great. It had grass on it. It had some torrential rains. The grass died or whatever. It didn't hold, and boom, there's the problem. I don't know. I mean, we just did taxing districts to take care of not having to take private subdivision roads in unless they want us to, and they got to pay for that. Maybe we need, Madam Chairwoman, through strategic planning with Mr. Oliver Joseph's committee now, to revisit this elsewhere in the code and get it fixed, strengthening it up so that we don't have, when we do these inspections, this big, quote, surprise, and, you know, not let it hold up what we're doing tonight. Maybe that's a solution, Madam Chairwoman, that we could all agree upon tonight. Hopefully so, because I do have empathy, as I said, that this has happened in the past. It's going to happen again and again. And the homeowners don't even know. I mean, the pond's silting up, the sides aren't, whatever, they don't know until it happens. Then they got the problem, and they come to the parish, and the parish says, I'm sorry, we can't do anything. It's your pond. So when the developer turns it over to them, it's the same thing almost to be like the street. We're going to require them to maintain the streets, and we're not going to keep taking them in anymore because we don't have the money to do so, and the people don't want to pay more tax for roads. We know what happened there. We had the same issue with detention ponds. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I want to say I'm in favor of keeping this in the ordinance as it is, and just as a point, this change is referencing any new development that would come in after the ordinance is adopted, so it's not going back on any existing ponds, but I agree with Councilman Lawler that but the next statement under B may be an opportunity to go through and update the requirements on the ponds to increase the slopes, or as Councilman Savage just alluded to, something else that would help with the longevity of the slides and the sloughing off as well. So I think it's workable. Would like to see that kept in there, though.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Oliver Joseph?
Oh, yes. Once again, I think Mr. Law say the administration was supposed to come up with a recommendation. Well, until it goes on strategic planning, I'll wait till administration give me that information, and then I will put it on that agenda. Administration have been awarded that job, so administration, as soon as you can come.
When were we awarded that job?
Hey, Mr. President, I'm I'm chairman of strategic plan. You give me the information, I'll put it on the agenda. But I'm not drawing up nothing.
No, I understand, and we will work on this, but let me ask, Mr. O'Neill one question. Does Ascension Parish maintain any retention ponds?
Not that I know of, not in subdivision.
We in a lawsuit right now with a subdivision.
Who had a, what do you call it, bulkhead all around, and the bulkheads collapsed and they don't want to pay for them. So requiring bulkheads may not be the issue, because then when the bulkheads give out, and it doesn't have to be as a result of, then they had to pay for it, and then they're crying and moaning about that. That's why we got sued. And it had nothing to do with the parish. It was lack of maintenance of their bulkheads.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So, we have a motion. Any other comments? All right, got some more. Okay. Let me take one on this side, and I'll come back to you. Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, basically, just like the road issue, that when they sign a plat, they know they're gonna have to, the new road policy that we just approved some roads tonight. In that plat, it shows that they're gonna have to have a millage tax. We need the same thing in the drainage, you know.
No, you don't.
In that plat, when they buy that home in that subdivision, they're gonna know up front. We don't want them to be blindsided at the end. So in that plat, if we could do something to state that the pond is the, responsibility of the homeowners and the association down the road.
The plat says that now, it's a private, it says on plats, those are designated as common area owned by, which are not owned by, which are owned by the
They
common
kind of
area.
highlight it, bold it, or whatever.
Yeah, it is a statement on the final plat now that the homeowners associations are responsible for the pond.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Over here, Mr. Dawson.
Thank you. I've had some experience with this as a Pelican Point Homeowners Association president, and the homeowners association didn't own any of the ponds. It didn't own, we never accepted that. When I was president, we never accepted it. So I think, one thing that we again, this is, as Benny said, this is all the new ponds, and we need to just make sure that the homeowners, they realize their responsibilities here if they accept these facilities. Somebody can give you something, but you don't have to accept it. And so, I think that's something we're overlooking. Myself, the only change I would, is more frequent than 5 years. I think that interval is too long myself, but I'm not going to offer any revision to it.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Mr. Kluwat.
Yeah, real quick, back to Mr. Dawson's comments, is that you saying that as a homeowner in Pelican Point and a member of the homeowners association, that y'all never accepted the ponds.
Correct.
I don't know what terms do you mean by that. So you saying that you left it to the developer?
The developer company still has
To
them.
the parish, right?
No, the
Make that clear to
developer,
everybody that,
the developer has them.
all right, because I know it was.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear to the public, that any homeowners association making a move not to accept the responsibility for any part of their development, going back to the developer.
It's between the developer
That's
and the
between them and
homeowner,
the
not
developer.
Ascension Parish.
Exactly.
So we know that when things are built, because I built a lot of stuff, nothing lasts forever. The roads are gonna go bad, hell, the houses might sink. And the pond's gonna go bad. Ditches are gonna get plugged, all right? So, do we just keep hedging on to where it's all the parish and how do we not let the developer off the hook up front? That's the main thing, okay?
Well, maybe that's something I can look
I
at.
disagree with taking this out, that's all I'm telling you, right now, so y'all can do it the next term, take it out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. And this was the whole thing. Hey, I was one of the ones spearheaded this, and I'd like to keep this in, but Eric, if you mind coming up, a lot of this was on the rain events, the 10, 25-year, 100-year events. A lot of the stuff, when they go back, we need to make sure that we give them the proper engineering. Listen, you need to dig this to whatever event we need, and this was one of the things that we put in, so.
Slump and reinforcement.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean.
You want to add anything to that, Eric? You can.
Well, I mean, it's such a large issue. That's why when we were in the committee, we said we were going to take it up as a separate issue, because once you start down it, you go from A to B to C, and you just keep running into things. I mean, I think if you want to have something in there, what she has in there is good. I think that everything is covered on the plat. You can also do like Mr. Dawson said. I mean, the homeowners association doesn't have to accept the ponds. But basically, you're taking a piece of private property and you're regulating it, and at some point, the homeowners association or whoever owns that facility has to take ownership of it. And then that responsibility goes to them. As long as they're notified on the plat, then that's the due notice that you give them. And then it's up to them as to how they deal with it.
Exactly, and let's face it, in this parish, there's folks that picked up the taxes on some of these lots that are retention, and there's other owners now, not the subdivision, so
That's true.
we have to get into this business one way or the other, so that's my thought.
We're going to make one more pass here, gentlemen, and then we'll move on. Mr. Sadler.
Well, I don't want to get in arguments about bulkheads that don't last, but I would invite everyone to come to my home in Slidell and look at what a bulkhead that's been placed 5 years ago, and despite boat traffic up and down the canal of my waterfront home that no one obeys the no idle rule. I mean, waves are splashing, and it ain't moved a 16th of an inch. As an engineer, Mr. Poche, isn't it true that you can use 14-foot vinyl? You can drive potlins to rejection. You can use appropriate size whalers. Again, I speak only with personal experience. I'm not an engineer, and that thing ain't going to move. And you're not going to have these problems. Now, that may be overkill. It may be something we can't force them, or maybe we should be forcing them, or some compromise. Maybe you don't have to be 14 feet because you're not going to have waves washing against it. Although, I mean, let's not ever forget this either. We've had developers stand up there right where you guys are and say, we actually charge a heck of a lot more for the lots that are on the ponds, because the people are fishing in them and they're boating in them and everything else. So they're making more money there. So maybe we could require, okay, we're going to have this detention pond, and we build a reasonably strong and secure, whatever the engineering criteria would be, whaler-wise, depth of vinyl sheet piling. You drop pilings to rejection and you put them up there. I see the engineer nodding his head over here, okay? And you're deep enough, it ain't going nowhere.
That's right.
If you just have these slope sides like we got with some grass on it, you got mossy oaks.
Yeah, I mean, you can overbuild or underbuild anything.
Thank you.
I mean, what you get out of it is what you
I think
bring
we
in.
have to come maybe with a compromise on that, but tweak that law wherever it is. Let's not kill this again. I'm like Randy, we need to get through this tonight, add on to this other issue later. It is an important issue. If we can prevent the surprises, whether or not it's in the contract and they realize it or not, whether or not Pelican Post is doing this, we throwing salt over the left shoulder, spitting in the wind and pulling the mask on the old Long Ranger. Like roads, it's an issue.
Yes.
And we're not perfect about it, but I think we can get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lawler.
Yes, first of all, I wasn't casting aspersions on the administration, just that when I went to strategic planning, I asked for a committee, and instead it got passed that we'd send it to the administration and they would come up with something, which is not what I'd wanted, but that happens sometimes. I mean, that happens sometimes. But this is an important issue. If you go into Shadows of Ascension, it's a relatively new neighborhood, Pascal Drive. They have houses that were not there the last time I was walking neighborhoods. Not just walking, they weren't there 4 years ago. I've got pictures to show you where their pond is eroding into the ground. That's not lack of maintenance. I mean, if our development community can't build a pond that lasts 4 years, I don't want to live in those houses either. I don't want to drive on those roads, quite honestly. Because if we can't trust them to do that, and we're going to sit here and then we're going to find the homeowners in that neighborhood, or in a future neighborhood, we're going to go find those homeowners, that's a problem to me. I'm not saying that this 175093 is a bad idea. I'm saying let's wait and bring it at the same time that we bring an improvement to how we do our ponds. Mr. President,
As the committee knows, this came up in our meetings, and it's just such a big animal, we said we need, this is a separate issue we have to address. So in starting somewhere else, we put that in there. But it is, number one, a drainage deal. It's a retention pond for drainage. So we got to work together with the Drainage Committee and Jerome and them, okay? So it's just not going to happen overnight, but you're right, we have to do a lot of homework on it.
Well, then I will say this, I'm opposed to this, and if we don't have something, within 6 months, I'm going to come back and make a motion that this be removed and amend this ordinance, because I really do not believe it's fair to put our citizens in this situation. So I won't oppose this right now, but 6 months from now, I'll be back making a motion that we remove this from this, because I just think it's very dangerous for our citizens.
Aaron, I think that's a good idea. Mr. Colott, do you have any further comment?
I yield right now.
All right, thank you very much.
Laura's comment.
So I think that was an excellent idea. I have long,
Real quick thing, Ms.
go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So it's not that they would be fined, they would be required to fix it first, and then if they didn't get the repairs made, then you would go into the penalty phase of it.
Yeah,
So
the fine's
that's-
like the fourth step down. That's just the last
They would be
final
worked with to make sure that they
penalty.
would start the repairs identified and so forth and so on, but,
I
those
understand,
costs are still there.
But it's very expensive to repair some of these if they're not built the right way. I'm looking at it right now, and I can tell you, it costs a fortune to do that. And a lot of these homeowner associations, think of one that's only a couple of years old, and they've been stashing away money for other things, and their fees aren't that high. They're not gonna have money for this. And that's a problem we're gonna have.
I've got one comment, Madam Chairman, if I may.
Go right ahead, Mr.
It addresses,
Cheyenne.
just to put Councilman Lawler's mind at ease. These are for new developments, and we know that there's still some components of that issue that have to be resolved and refined, and that's one of them. But these developments, this is for new developments. They have a 1-year warranty period on all of the improvements in that. So if you approved a development today, accepted a development today, they would have 1 year of warranty to take care of any issues that are or deficiencies that occur within that 1-year warranty period. So you're safe in that respect. There won't be, the developer's responsibility will be to repair any deficiencies within that 1-year period. Hopefully by then, I would think that there would be all the necessary refinements to strengthen this to satisfy your concerns.
I think we can get there. My concern is not just with the 1 year, it's the starting quality. I'd like to increase the starting quality. I could build a door for somebody out of balsa wood and say it's gonna be great for a year, but after a year, that door's gonna kick in like it's nothing. And that's what we're kinda doing right now. We're building ponds that they look fine the first couple of years. But you get 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and I go to Parker Place, look across their pond at Shadows of Ascension, and you'll see these houses that have been there for 4 years. The citizens are having to build bulkheads. The ones that can't afford it, it's just disappearing. It's not Nutria. I've been over there. It started disappearing right away.
Mr. Turner.
This is a quick question on it. As far as the builders or the developers, once they build these ponds, can we require them just to insure these ponds? And then once the homeowner association takes over, that they transfer that insurance to the homeowners association, which would be less money towards the homeowner association? I know Aaron does insurance defense. Can't that be insured?
As my dad was an insurance broker said, you can always insure anything for any price. Liberace's fingers were insured, But, I think it'd be hard to insure a pond that is gonna have those kind of maintenance. It's gonna be extremely expensive, in my opinion. And I think that would be very difficult to get a policy, because basically insurance is something that you're paying for something may not happen. If you know you're gonna have maintenance, they're gonna charge you at least how much it's gonna cost for that maintenance. Otherwise, what's the point of insurance?
Thank you. Mr. Cagnolati.
Just, Glenn, you made a comment about the 1-year warranty. Could we require to extend that for the detention pond beyond a year? Maybe make that 3, 4, 5-year warranty and hold the developer responsible for, you gotta maintain that. Or if the homeowners are gonna accept that, it has to be written in their contract when they purchase a house that they know they're gonna accept this responsibility. Just food for thought.
Comment. Mr. Kluwat.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of, getting the engineering standards up for ponds, okay? You know, do a 3-on-1, put riprap on it. I got a bunch of friends in Ascension Parish and other parishes, including Baton Rouge. I don't have any in Slidell. But, that, the bulkhead within their lot is their responsibility. Hell, a damn lot comes without it. I mean, one of the nice subdivisions in Baton Rouge comes without a bulkhead. You want a bulkhead? Build your bulkhead. Then the homeowner association issues a standard for your bulkhead, by the way. So I think the engineering standards tightened up on the edge of the pond, you know? I got miles and miles of canal based on pumping water to the Marlboro pump station where people are losing land, that we having the riprap, we having the bulkhead, we having the shore up. So other than runoff to the ponds, I don't see no speedboats coming back and forth, slamming up against it and everything. Just tighten up the engineering standards, and I'm sure y'all can do that, okay?
Mr. Clark, we can do that, and we will look at it and then come to y'all at strategic planning. But also, though, the only developer that takes care of the pond is the golf course. That's why he takes care of the ponds, because it's on a golf course, and you don't see any other ones would do that, I don't think.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for the very healthy discussion. I appreciate it very much. Mr. Dawson?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move.
I think there is a motion on the table, sir. A motion and a second.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this and the amendment as introduced.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt 175903, long-term accountability of mitigation facilities with a change to item B to 120 days on the floor now. Are there any objections to that motion? Hearing none, that little amendment is adopted. We have two adopted amendments. And now, the chair will entertain a motion on ordinance, on item number 31, which is the entire introduced ordinance, plus these amendments.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Dawson and a second by Councilman Cagalati. Is there any further discussion? Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion unanimously passes. And I thank the administration, I congratulate the council, and I appreciate all of your support in this effort.
If you allow me,
Mr. Coulon.
yes, parting shots, I know Martin didn't put out there now, but we got a big event coming to Balloon Festival at Lamar Dixon this month, and it's going to be joined by the Boucherie Festival. So you see a hog in the air, you know what I mean?
Very good. I want to thank Kimberly and Glenn for the hard work that they did on this. I appreciate them very much. They were very technically oriented as well as gracious to all of us as we struggled with it, and I thank them personally and professionally for their efforts. Thank you very much. I have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Cagalati, a second by Councilman Lambert. We are adjourned.